What's going on YouTube? So even though gas prices are quite affordable in the US right now, there's still more interest in hybrid and electric vehicles than ever before. Now Honda brought back this Insight nameplate a couple years ago, and for the 2021 model year, they are adding several new features to all of the trim levels. So with that said, let's go ahead and see if this is the best hybrid for the money. So let's start with a tour of the exterior styling. So I'll go ahead and squat down here at the grille. Now, this is one of the areas I think really highlights the fact that this Insight is really a good looking vehicle. It takes similar elements to the Civic and the Accord, but overall it just looks a little bit better. So we have a grille that comes through here. This is always going to be black, and then you have this large piece of chrome that runs all across the top here for a nice sleek look. And coming over to the headlights, I am surprised to see that you have standard full LED headlights across all three trim levels. That is something that the Civic does not give you until you go all the way up to the fully loaded touring trim level. And as you can see, it definitely has a nice clean look to it. You will also find LED fog lights down at the bottom if you choose the touring trim. Now as far as your wheels, there's not a ton of different choices. You just have a 16-inch alloy for the LX and the EX. And then you have a 17-inch alloy if you go for the fully loaded touring trim level. Now, there is something I want to show you guys on the other side, so we'll go ahead and go over there so I can show you one of the 2021 changes. So over here at the passenger side mirror, you may notice something missing. There's a kind of a large tumor shape down here previously, and that was the lane watch camera. So for 2021, Honda's actually eliminated that. That's no more. And in its place, we have blind spot monitoring, which of course covers both sides now. And you also have rear cross traffic alert, which is definitely a nice addition to the EX trim level and up.
Now here at the Insight's rear design, the only two things that are going to cue you in that this is a hybrid is this hybrid bed right back here and the fact that there are going to be no exhaust pipes on this Insight. Now, other than that, I think that this has a really good look to it. Honestly, it looks a little bit better than the Civic in my opinion, since it has that nice slope back roof design. And then as far as your taillights, these are going to be partially LED. The brake light portion is LED, and the rest is going to be incandescent. Now, one thing that Honda has always been good at, and that continues for this 2021 Insight, is going to be your safety systems. They're going to include all of them as standard equipment, which means that even the base LX will have adaptive cruise, automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assist, and auto high beam headlamps. So as you can see on the outside, this Insight isn't really a quirky hybrid, so let's go ahead and hop on the inside and see what they've done in there before we take it out on a spin.
So for 2021, you will continue to find Honda's smart entry system, as well as remote start standard on the EX trim level and higher. And as you can see, since it is a hybrid, we have the special blue fob. Now to get inside the vehicle itself, there is a sensor, so just grab behind it. And once we open it up here, you will see that the cabin does remain pretty much the same as in the other model years. Now as far as how you can equip this cabin, you don't have a ton of choices. So for colors, it's just going to be black or ivory across all three trim levels. On the lower two trim levels, you're going to have this cloth as your seating material, but you will get leather if you go for the touring trim. And turning over here to the door trim itself, you will find those same materials reflected up here. So we have the cloth seating, so we have cloth on the armrest as well as above it, and the top part is soft touch. As far as your windows, they are one touch automatic for both the driver and the passenger. Coming down here to the seats, as you can see, these are going to be 6-way manual adjusting seats. You can get an 8-way power seat if you go for the touring model. And then, like I already mentioned, this is a cloth seat, but I do like that they still make it look good. It has a nice soft material, color contrast stitching, and a interesting design right there in the middle. So one of the nice things about the Insight is that they don't cheap out materials even on the lower trim levels. So here on the mid-level EX, we still have a soft touch dashboard all across the top, and then dropping down to the middle, we have the leatherette material with the color contrast stitching detail, and that goes all the way down the side. As far as some of your other materials, of course, these are going to be hard touch, but everything does fit together extremely well with no gaps or anything like that, as is typical for the Honda brand. Now, even though Smart Entry is not standard across the board, push button start is standard across all three trims. And once she fires up here, you will be greeted with the kind of cool digital display that's standard on the Insight. So it's kind of hard to tell actually, but this side is an analog gauge, and like in the Accord, this side is actually a display. So this is fully customizable. By default, it's just the hybrid gauges, but you can also, go through and add some specific things like your range, and even some things like your power flow, which is pretty cool to see on a hybrid model. And coming back to the steering wheel itself, of course, you have electric power assisted steering. This is just a urethane steering wheel, but if you choose the Touring model, it will be leather wrapped. As far as the steering wheel, you will notice that we have some paddle shifters behind it. These are actually not used for shifting, but they're used for brake regen. And then the wheel does manual tilt and telescope, but heating is not available. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into interior storage. Now, of course, the Insight is pretty similar to the Civic, and that's definitely a good thing when it comes to storage. So we'll start off by lifting up our center armrest here. As you can see, we've got a really nice storage area, very deep, really good size for a vehicle in this category. You can slide your cup holders and reveal a third cup holder as well. And then we have our handy dandy coupon test. Actually, if we just kind of bend them just a little bit, we can get that whole stack in there, no problem. And this does also adjust as well. Now up in front of that, we have an additional storage area. This nice flat pad is great for a cell phone, and you've got two of your USB ports as well as a 12-volt outlet right in front of it. Now, like a lot of recent Hondas, they've gone to an electronic shifter here on the Insight. So for drive, you're just going to press down the D. Like I said, you have the paddle shifters, but they are not for actual shifting. And then pull back on the R for reverse. When you do, you'll be greeted with the standard backup camera. As you can see, you do have active trajectory, and you also have 3 different angles. Definitely also good color to the image itself. And then back behind the shifter, you have your electronic parking brake and brake hold function. And then off to the side of that, we have our drive mode. So you have Econ, Normal, and Sport mode on the Insight. You also have an EV mode, which just locks it into using the battery power under a certain speed. Okay, so jumping on up to our climate controls. On the LX and the EX trim level, that's going to be a single zone automatic setup, dual zone automatic if you go for the fully loaded Touring model. As you can see, very simple controls and physical buttons right here. Up above that, we have our volume knob. Every version of the Insight actually comes with a different sound system. So we start out with 6 speakers on LX, 8 speakers on EX, and 10 speakers on the Touring. So let's go ahead and sample the middle option. Overall, I think sound quality is pretty good, especially since this is not a branded sound system. Okay, so now we are here at the display. So this is actually not the standard display. There's a 5-inch display on the LX, but so long as you choose the EX or the Touring, that's where you'll get this 8-inch display. Now, one of the things I noticed right off the bat is even though the design looks pretty similar to the Civic, you actually have the new version of Honda Link, unlike that model. So this has the latest software, which is a lot more responsive and has better graphics and features. Now, of those features, navigation is going to come standard on just the Touring model, but as long as you have this 8-inch touch display, you will have both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay abilities. Up above me, we have the mirror, which is manual dimming on the EX. And then up top, you will notice we don't have a moonroof on this specific example, but you can get one by choosing the Touring trim.
Now, once you hop back into the inside rear seat, honestly, you're going to just feel like you're in a Civic, since this is pretty much the exact same size and has the exact same feature set. Now, as far as the legroom figures, it's 37 inches of both leg and headroom, which means behind rear seating position, I have probably 4 or 5 inches of rear leg room. My feet can slide up under the seat. I'm plenty comfortable. You could fit 3 adults back here very comfortably. Now, as far as your features here in the center, no inside is going to come with any vents. You also are going to miss out on the heated rear seats, which you would get on the Civic Touring. And then as far as the center armrest, it does fold down with 2 cup holders inside. Now, opening up the trunk, there is a button under the lid. And then once inside, you're going to find 15.1 cubic feet of space in this particular Insight. If you go for the Touring, it's going to be reduced to 14.7 cubic feet. It is worth noting that's a lot of space, especially for a sedan in this size segment. And the reason for that is because the batteries are under the rear seats in this Insight, so it doesn't impede with your cargo area. Now, as far as the finishings back here, we do have a carpeting along the floor, and if we lift it up, you are going to find a little bit of additional storage. However, I don't see a spare tire, so I'm not sure if it is included on this. And then you do also have 60-40 split folding rear seats. Now, as you would expect, your seat is going to be manually adjusting over here. And then as far as your glove box, it is not dampened. However, it is pretty good sized. I can definitely fit quite a few Burger King gift cards in, or coupons, excuse me. You can definitely fit a lot of them in here, so you can save money on food and gas. And then up here at the top, we do have a mirror with a light, and you can also detach it as well as extend.
Now, obviously, as a hybrid, when you're going at low speeds, the engine is not running, and you're just cruising along with your battery power. You also might notice in the gauge cluster, Honda has designed a little thing to show you where the power is flowing. So I find that pretty interesting. You can see when the engine is feeding the battery, when the battery is feeding the wheels. Yep. Different variations of when it's going and when it's not.
It's really kind of a neat thing, especially, if you're trying to maximize that efficiency.
Right.
You can kind of see it
exactly.
And, modulate your driving.
It coaches
according
you.
to.
Now, of course, when you put your foot down, you're not going to stay in the electric mode for too long, but once that engine fires up, what you're going to be looking at is a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder. That, of course, is paired with the electric motor, a lithium-ion battery pack, and all together we're going to have 151 horsepower, which is pretty decent for a car in this size category. It's pretty much the size of a Civic. Obviously, it's not exactly quick,
Yeah.
but it's not bad.
Now, once you do get up to speed, just kind of cruising along here, I have to say this is a pretty good driving experience. I'm noticing that it's not really any different than the Honda Civic, and that's really a great thing because it does ride very smooth. It's a comfortable ride, especially in this EX trim level, and it's also very quiet entering into the cat. I don't really hear any wind noise or anything like that. So I think that most people are going to be very happy with this driving experience, because when you go for an Insight, of course, you're not going to be like super focused on the driving dynamics, and you just kind of want it to be comfortable and blend into the background. And I think that's what this vehicle does really well.
Mm-hmm. And you have less engine noise because,
Yeah.
for instance, now the engine's not running. You know, even while we were going fairly high speed, but we were going downhill, so we needed less energy, and the engine was not running.
And I will get a sound level reading for reference here. We're going around 40 miles per hour. Looking around 53 and a half decibels, which is very good. It is a little bit lower speed than some of our other sound level tests, but this road is also very rough, so that kind of will balance it out. And it is, you know, just kind of proves the point that it is very quiet in here.
Really though, my favorite thing about it, now that we're behind the wheel, has got to be the handling. I'm really glad that that part of, you know, from the Civic and the Accord definitely carries over to the Insight, because it really feels nice and buttoned down. Honda does a great job with tuning their cars and their chassis just to have that nice, you know, buttoned down, solid, athletic feel, and that is no different here in the Insight. And you know, something that's definitely going to stand out when you compare to something like the Prius. The steering's also really nicely weighted. I mean, I'm honestly kind of surprised, but I'm kind of enjoying this back here on this country road. So that, go figure, you know, the little humble hybrid Insight is actually kind of tossable and fun back here on the country road. Now, if you're wondering about the transmission setup here, it's actually not a traditional continuously variable transmission. It is Honda's direct drive. The way they configure their hybrid system basically means that you don't need a traditional transmission. It's effectively just a one-speed transmission, but in practice it's kind of similar to a continuously variable transmission, so you don't really have any type of shift simulation or anything like that. You just kind of get up to speed and then it brings it back down and turns off the engine in a lot of cases once you get up to speed.
Now it is time for us to discuss our Slam Dunk and Airball, and for this Insight, it's not going to really come as a surprise what the Slam Dunk is going to be, but it's going to be the fuel economy, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. But not just the fuel economy, but also just the fact that you're really not sacrificing much, really, in terms of style, in terms of space, in terms of comfort. There's just not very much sacrifice for that additional fuel economy that you're getting over a traditional thing, something like a Civic.
However, there is kind of one sacrifice, and that's going to be our Airball. We would put that at kind of your speed. This is a pretty slow vehicle. It is slower than in a comparable Honda Civic, so it would have been nice to see that. You know, a lot of times hybrid systems actually can give more power and make some cars a little bit faster, so it would have been nice for this to be a little bit swifter.
Now you've been waiting this entire time to hear the fuel economy, and it is time for me to tell you. So this Insight, just to go ahead and burst your bubble, it has amazing fuel economy. So for this LX and EX trim, it's going to come in at 55 in the city, 49 highway, 52 combined. So 52 miles per gallon out of this Insight. If you go for the touring, I guess the larger wheels kind of hurt your fuel economy a little bit, and you're going to go down to 48 combined. But still, regardless of the way you pick this Insight, 50 miles a gallon out of something like this is pretty darn exceptional, and definitely is going to save you a lot over the course of owning this vehicle.
So like a lot of videos, I started off by asking kind of a question, and today I asked, is this the best affordable hybrid vehicle out there? And, you know, I have to say it might very well be. Honestly, there's not a lot of affordable hybrid vehicles really to choose between, and I think with the price point of this being in the low 20s, you're really looking at a very compelling argument, especially when you get that type of fuel economy. The small price premium over something just regular like a Corolla or Honda Civic, I think you really have a strong argument, especially like Mason said, without really compromising anything.
Now, one of the most attractive things about this Insight is its pricing, since it's really not that much more expensive than the Honda Civic. So for the LX, that's going to come in at $22,930. The EX is $24,810, and then the Touring is $28,840, which is a slight increase since 2019. Now, in typical Honda fashion, you only have the destination charge, so $955 is that. To bring this one's total to $25,765, which that's a pretty good price point for this Insight. You're getting a ton of space and comfort inside this cabin, and you're also getting a really exceptional fuel economy. So you're going to be saving for years to come at the pump.
Well, that's going to be it for this review of the 2021 Honda Insight EX. We really appreciate you watching, and if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. You get free notifications on all of our videos, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.